I want to talk about some common writing problems when people are trying to write psychological literature, specifically on organizational psychology, in APA format. So I want to focus on what I consider the most common issues in APA format. Um, some of these are kind of trivial. The first big issue is a number problem. If a number is the first word in a sentence, APA says that it must be written out in words. So if we have 77 participants completed the survey, we can't write out 77, we have to write out the words 77. So sentences can't start with digits, they have to start with the words written out. Another real common error are abbreviation errors. The first time an abbreviation is introduced, it must be immediately preceded by the whole expression spelled out fully, and then you put parentheses right next to the expression with the abbreviation. So if I wanted to talk about spelled out fully and use an abbreviation, I would write the word spelled out fully here and then put SOF right afterwards. So that way, anytime somebody sees the letters SOF, they can search for it in the document, and the meaning of SOF will be right next to the first time that it occurs. But be careful with abbreviations. There's two reasons that you shouldn't use them in APA. One is once you introduce an abbreviation, you must use it again and again, and you cannot go you can no longer use the word or expression spelled out fully. You have to always use SOF. You can't say spelled out fully or whatever the expression is. You can't alternate between the expression and the abbreviation. Another reason is that it's just a pain for the reader because they might not remember what SOF is. And it doesn't cost much to type out spelled out fully, and it just helps the reader. Now, occasionally you'll use an expression so often, like in every other line for page after page, that it is better to have an abbreviation, but only in that case. Normally, don't use abbreviations in APA format unless you really need to. Another issue is that Word by default puts an extra line between paragraphs at the bottom of the page or at the bottom of the page to avoid a single line at the bottom or the top of widow or the orphan. You need to turn off these features for APA formatting. And I've got some directions here on how to turn it off. But basically, if you've got an extra line between two paragraphs, you need to turn it off. Let me show you here. I've got a document. And let's go to where I've got some paragraphs. So everything is double spaced. There's no extra lines in APA format. But if the default format for words is, let's see, let's see. Sometimes some of these things are, okay, widow and orphan control should be turned off. And sometimes it's don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. Sometimes this is set so that it'll add an extra space between the paragraphs. I don't have that, but sometimes you've got an extra space between the paragraphs and you've got to play with these paragraph settings to get rid of it. Another common error is the use of Latin abbreviations. Well, what do I mean by Latin abbreviation? For example, e.g., i.e. means that is, and etc. means and so on. So these are the most common Latin abbreviations, and you're only allowed to use them in parentheses. You can't stick them in a sentence. And so this is used correctly. It says, for example, i.e. and so on is what this means. Now notice how there's no space after e.g. and ie. The first period has no space after it. That's you don't use spaces in these two-word Latin abbreviations when there's a period there. And you can only use them in parentheses. The only exception is the expression et al., which means et alii in Latin, and means and others. You can use that in parentheses, like Smith et al., and you have to use that when there's 3 or more authors that wrote an article. You don't write all 3 out. You write Smith et al., period, comma, and the date in the parentheses. Or I could write in the text, Smith et al. Said blah, blah, blah. I can use et al. Rather than listing out all the other authors. So these are some common APA issues that I see very, very often in students' writing.